To truly talk about mobile internet, we need to talk about using internet while in motion. So join us for some tips while we're in motion of how to keep connected.
Hey, I'm Chris.
And I'm Cherie.
And we're currently cruising down I-10, right?
No, we're not on I-10. We're on I-75.
I-75. It's one of those I things.
Focus on navigating. Focus on talking. All right. We are the founders of the Mobile Internet Resource Center, and most of our content is really about using internet more in a portable fashion. Most of us are concerned about getting connected when we are stopped at our campsite or our anchorage or our marina, wherever we are staying for the night or for a prolonged amount of time, and having internet to work remotely, to keep entertained, to research our next stops, banking, and all that stuff we do online. But what about using internet while you are actually in motion? I mean, there are reasons you might want to. Navigation. Chris is using his iPhone to do our navigating off of his cell phone. That is using internet in motion. But what if you need to do other things, like maybe work remotely, maybe do planning and booking your next campsite while you're in motion, researching where you're going to stop tonight, looking ahead for weather forecasts, or maybe the passengers want to keep entertained, listening, streaming podcasts, maybe even streaming video while underway.
Now, most of these are things that the driver should not be doing, particularly like booking your next campsite or maybe writing a Word article and stuff. Drivers should not be doing that, but passengers sometimes need to work.
Drivers should navigate and drive. If you need to do some of these more, I would say, advanced or reliable mobile internet needed sort of things, when you start wanting to use it in motion, it gets a little more tricky than just using your cell phone while you're in motion to check things or navigate or things like that. So we're going to share some tips on how we keep connected to work remotely and do things while we are in motion and making miles, because sometimes we're doing 12-hour driving days to get from point A to point B, and we just have to. But first of all, really consider, do you need in-motion internet? How reliable of a connection do you need while you're in motion? Is it absolutely essential that you be able to do video conferencing calls for work while you're in motion? Or is it maybe easier to just find a rest stop and pull off for the 30 minutes or an hour to conduct that call?
You can get a walk in and stretch and get your work done and get back on the road and be more efficient sometimes overall.
Yeah, so that's typically what we do actually when we have things that absolutely require a good, solid connection. But there are times when I'm needing to check in with the office. I'm needing to research a story. I need to answer a form question or something like that. So I'll get the laptop out and work a little bit from the seat. But you know what? I'm a little prone to motion sickness. That's not fun. And then I'm missing, well, there's no beauty here on I-75. There's just green pastures.
Which are beautiful.
Yeah, but they get a little boring.
Yeah, freeways are boring.
But if we are in a remote area and it's where the driving is part of the adventure, I want to focus on the views, not on working. So really consider how essential it's going to be to use internet in motion. Now, the first option for mobile internet in motion is Starlink. They offer a official way to use Starlink in motion from satellite internet. And we have a lot of content on satellite internet, but for using it in motion, there are two requirements as per their terms of service. Not that they're enforcing them at this current time. We're filming this in April 2024. First of all, the only hardware that they officially support for in-motion use is the flat high-performance dish, which is the expensive one. It's $2,500. It's rather large to have on your roof and always mounted. But the standard dish does work in motion. They just say it's at your own risk, and it does void the warranty. But the next caveat is the one that kind of makes it pricey. Starlink, as per the terms of service, is you have to be using what they call priority mobile data in order to have it work above 10 miles per hour. And that data is $2 per gigabyte. That can get very pricey if you're doing a lot of stuff in motion, like streaming Netflix to keep them. Well, people might want to. I mean,
download it in advance.
Yeah, that's a better option. But that does get pricey. Now, at current time, they are not enforcing that above 10 mile per hour caveat. So you can use just standard mobile data for in-motion use. But they could change those terms and actually enforce their terms of service at any time. So keep that in mind. If you're depending on Starlink, well, in motion, it could get pricier over time. Now, There are some considerations with using Starlink in motion besides the hardware and the costs, and that is when you are going under overpasses, you can have brief dropouts. If you're passing through a congested area where there are a lot of people, you could have congestion slowdowns while you're in those areas. But by and large, we tested using in motion Starlink, and it works great for keeping online. I wouldn't pay $2 a gigabyte for it, though. Not me personally, no. So cellular is actually what we use most of the time. We don't even have Starlink permanently mounted on our van. We have it permanently mounted on our boat. We do use that in
motion on the boat works great.
Yeah, because we're always under 10 miles per hour usually anyway, so it's not an issue there. But in the van, or if we're traveling by RV of any sort, we're using cellular as our internet connection. And it can work great. Here we're in Georgia, we're in the southeast. We've been traveling a lot on the East Coast. So usually there's a lot of cell towers, not a lot of dropouts. We can get to some more rural locations where the cell towers are more spread out. And there may be some dropouts and slowdowns as we're handing off from tower to tower. And that can result in like a web page not loading very quickly, having to be patient and waiting for images to load. I'm usually not trying to do video while we're underway. That's just recipe for frustration.
But we have.
Cellular, if you get to more rural locations, though, you're out west where the cell towers get more sparse.
And if you're traveling away from the freeways tend to have good coverage, but a lot of the rural roads that we prefer often have really poor coverage.
There was a section we did yesterday in Kentucky where we're off the interstate, and even being east of the Mississippi, there were frequent dropouts. I was frequently going down to no bars. We even saw SOS on my iPhone the other day, even here on the East Coast. So cellular is not going to be a stable, reliable, always-on connection while in motion, but it can work actually most of the time as long as you're near cell towers. Now, to get a better connection, now if you're just checking maps, checking email, needing to chat with people or something like that, that's going to be fine. You can be patient for a couple minutes and wait until you're closer to a tower down the road.
Or download your maps in advance. Very good tip is make sure you're both Google Maps, Apple Maps have ways to do offline maps, have them set up where you're going, and it will solve a lot of problems.
Absolutely. Now, if you need to do more things that require a more reliable, stable connection, then that's where having multiple cellular carriers running at the same time that you can quickly bounce between becomes very essential. And the best way to do that is using a cellular router that supports bonding so that you can have all those connections running through one centralized, basically, pipe. And as one cell tower is getting further away, then another one on a different carrier picks up that is still working, and you feel a more reliable connection. So we use Peplink routers for that reason. That's what we're running here in the van. I think we actually have the BR2 running behind Chris's head over there that has multiple cellular connections running at once. And then we have an omnidirectional antenna on the roof that is getting us a better signal in motion. So it's constantly looking 360 degrees around to pick up signal from multiple locations. And that works really well. And of course, if there's no cell towers around, there's going to be no connectivity. You just have to get used to that.
But if you combine all three major carriers, and actually last night, Dish was even, the fourth carrier was the best in our last night's stop. So if you have multiple carriers on board, oftentimes where one carrier is bad, another carrier is great. Particularly in a lot of rural areas, AT&T, T-Mobile, and Verizon all have the towns, the small micro towns they focused on, and only one might have a tower in a small micro town. And if you have all three carriers, you might not even notice that you're going through a Swiss cheese coverage map of bad signal on one carrier. So combining is great.
So if you need that more robust experience, then look at ways of having auto failover bonding and those sorts of features on your router. The other consideration is your installation of where you have your mobile internet equipment, and more importantly, where your Wi-Fi is being transmitted from. Here in the van, no problem. That little white box right there is our Wi-Fi access point. It's reaching everywhere in the van. But if you are pulling like a trailer and you might have your internet set up way back there and you've got a metal vehicle that it might be blocking the signal, that's where you might want to consider installing an access point or having your Wi-Fi access point towards the front of that trailer so there's better odds of reaching and covering the solid Wi-Fi experience in your driver's compartment where you want to be using it while underway. Otherwise, you want to maybe have a mobile hotspot or something that you bring up into your truck that you're pulling with, so that you have more options right near you. So those are some of the tips that we've learned over the years of keeping connected while actually in motion. But yeah, really consider, do you need that reliable connection motion? How much effort do you want to put into it, and how much expense do you want to put into it? For sometimes it's worth it. Sometimes it's better just to sit back and enjoy the journey. Until next time, may the bandwidth be with you.
These videos are brought to you by our premium members, our mobile internet aficionados. They make it possible for us to track this news and create these videos. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, subscribe to our channel, or better yet, consider becoming a member yourself.